A very good evening. I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching World Today. Now, what is happening on the ground in Riyadh? US negotiators worked on a proposed partial ceasefire in the three-year-old war in Ukraine on Monday, meeting representatives from Russia one day after holding talks separately with the team from Kyiv, that's Ukraine. It has been a struggle to reach even a limited 30-day ceasefire, which Moscow and Kyiv agreed to in principle last week, with both sides continuing to attack each other with drones and missiles. One major sticking point is what targets would be off limits to strike even after US President Donald Trump spoke with the country's leaders because the parties disagree. While the White House said energy and infrastructure would be covered, Kremlin declared that the agreement referred more narrowly to energy infrastructure. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said he would also like to see infrastructure like railways and ports protected.
The sentiment on the front lines in Zaporizhia remains skeptical while US mediated talks on a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine in Saudi Arabia is going on.
The situation at the Zaporizhia front line has become very complicated. The enemy is conducting attacks along the whole Zaporizhia front line with tanks and fighting vehicles. Guided bomb attacks on both the frontline areas and the city of Zaporizhia itself have increased.
Satellite imagery captured on Sunday showed fire and smoke rising from an oil depot in Russia's Krasnodar region. The spark was caused last week by a drone attack that authorities blamed on Ukraine. Saudi talks are to detail a proposed 30-day ceasefire and strikes on energy infrastructure of both countries, as well as a longer-term peace deal. Ukraine believes a ceasefire focusing specifically on energy infrastructure would benefit Russia more.
This ceasefire for energy now in the favor of Russia. In these 3 years, of course, we lost a lot. We lost a lot of generation capacity. It was a hundreds attack to our high voltage power grid. It was a lot of attack to our gas production units. But the result is we adopted. We already know how to opposite to this attack, how to defend our objects, what to do, how to maintenance, how to deliver power to the people. You can see that we moved through this winter without any big outages.
The Monday talks between US and Russia follows a day after the Americans met Ukrainian representatives to reach a maritime ceasefire in the Black Sea. Bureau Report, India Today.
And joining me now live from Riyadh is Igor Zidanov. He is a correspondent with Russia Today. Igor, thank you so much for joining us. You're in Riyadh. Hectic parleys underway. Could these Riyadh talks really produce a breakthrough that many are hoping for?
Well, I have to say that the gravity of these talks is surely underlined by the very fact that they have been going on between the Russians and the Americans for over 6 hours. In fact, the groups, the delegations have had to take already 2 breaks. And so far, there is still no end in sight of these talks. So while they are happening behind closed doors and the media are not allowed in, it really is indicative as how both the Americans and the Russians are really treating the situation, that they really go deep into every detail. Otherwise, this meeting would have been already over. So there have been reports that after this round of talks is done and dusted, the Americans could go and meet with the Ukrainian delegation again, having already met with them yesterday. So really, it seems that the sides are sorting things out. And there has been some cautious optimism voiced by the Americans. The Russians have been rather tight-lipped about their expectations of the talks. For the Ukrainians, for that instance, they have not shared much detail as to what had been happening yesterday. But when it comes to the Americans, they have been saying that they expect some real progress. And I mean, for everyone who is hoping for a ceasefire and for truce and eventually a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine, they hope for the same thing. They hope for some, again, real progress.
Right, Igor, Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, and Luhansk. These are 4 territories that now are under Russian control or are part of Russian territories after the referendum in 2022. Now, will Russia really agree to cede land should the talks move forward, especially the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant?
Well, the issue of these territories, which Russia has Russia officially considers all these regions its own territory. And now, with the new administration in power in Washington, they hear Russia's concerns. They hear Russia on this issue. And in fact, one of Donald Trump's special representatives and envoys recently, in an interview to Tucker Carlson, a prominent American journalist, he has talked about this extensively, that Russia is in control, often physically is in control of much of those territories, and that this is something that for Russia is very important, is very crucial. And the United States are hearing that, and it is obvious that they are bringing this up in their conversations with the Ukrainians. Now, of course, again, these conversations mostly happen behind closed doors. But so we have no way of knowing really as to what is being said there. But given the fact we can only use circumstantial evidence as to try and make up our minds as to what is being said there. But given that the Americans have been rather cautiously optimistic about it, what I can say is apparently the two sides are reaching towards the point in time when they find some common ground on these issues.
Right. Igor Zadanov, thank you so much for joining us here on the network. We'll keep coming back to you maybe to get a sense of what's happening on the ground since you're in Riyadh. Shifting focus but staying on the subject. Ukraine has received a fresh batch of American-made F-16 jets this week. But there's a problem. Unlike Russia, which parades its fighter jets in combat, Ukraine's new American-made warplanes remain unseen. No battle footage, no confirmed engagements, just silence. So what's really going on? Are these jets being kept in reserve for a decisive moment, or is Kyiv struggling to use them at all? Rudrashish Kanjilal gets us this report. And this is a very important story because we will be getting you the report on what is happening with the F-16s. There is a major issue when it comes to whether if Ukraine is combat ready and if Ukrainian pilots are ready to fly the F-16s. That's one of the major reasons it's rumored that there could be a problem in actually getting the F-16s to fly. For now, it feels like the Ukrainian skies have been abandoned completely while we see Russian jets, Russian missiles, and Russian aircrafts really in the skies in Ukraine and bombard Ukraine. Here is the report.
Ukraine's Air Force has received another batch of American-made F-16s. But here's the catch. Where are they? Unlike Russia, which proudly flaunts its fighter jets in combat, Ukraine has yet to showcase its new warplanes in action. No footage, no official battle reports, only silence. So, what's really going on? Are these fighter jets being hidden for strategic reasons, or is Ukraine struggling to use them at all? At the forefront, MiG-35s and Su-35s, frequently showcased by the Russian Defense Ministry as they dominate Ukrainian airspace. But amid all these updates, something is missing: the much-hyped F-16s. President Zelensky recently announced that another batch of F-16s has arrived. Countries like the Netherlands, Norway, and Belgium have pledged these American fighter jets to Ukraine. Kyiv faces a dilemma. Keeping these jets hidden means they stay safe, but also grounded. And grounded jets don't win wars. Then there's the uncomfortable truth. F-16s are vulnerable. Last August, Ukraine reportedly lost one of these prized jets during a massive Russian assault. Details remain classified, but the loss raised serious questions. Are these jets truly combat ready for this war? Another major issue: Ukraine's airstrips. Unlike Russian aircraft, which are built for rugged conditions, F-16s require smooth NATO standard runways. A single loose pebble can destroy their engines. And with Ukrainian airbases constantly under attack, operating these jets isn't just difficult, it's dangerous. And then comes the biggest challenge: air superiority. A former Ukrainian Air Force spokesperson has admitted that F-16s aren't designed to counter Russian jets head-on. Here's why. Russia's Su-35s carry R-37M missiles with a staggering 300-kilometer range. Ukrainian F-16s, armed with AIM-120 missiles, max out at 120 kilometers. That means Russian pilots can engage before Ukraine's jets even detect them. Even with NATO backing, Ukraine is struggling to counter Russia's evolving tactics. So, the big question remains: is Ukraine holding back its F-16s for a decisive moment? Or are these jets simply unfit for the battlefield? The F-16s remain a mystery, powerful on paper, but missing in action. And in a war of perceptions, that silence speaks volumes. Bureau Report, India Today Global.
The Russia-Ukraine war has turned ordinary citizens into defenders of their homeland. Among them is a remarkable group of women who are making global headlines. They call themselves the Bucha Witches, Ukraine's first all-women air defense unit. Their mission is to take down Russian drones and protect their war-ravaged city. So who are these women and what drives them to fight? Our next report.
Bucha, a once peaceful suburb of Kyiv, became one of the darkest symbols of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. When Russian forces occupied the town in early 2022, they left behind a trail of death and destruction. Reports claim that over 450 civilians, including men, women and children, were killed in what Ukraine calls war crimes. In the wake of this brutality, a group of determined women rose up, not as victims, but as defenders. Meet the Bucha Witches, Ukraine's first all-women air defense unit. They are volunteers, not professional soldiers. Mothers, teachers, business owners and students, all united by one goal: protecting their home from Russian attacks. Many of these women have suffered unimaginable personal losses, but instead of retreating into despair, they chose to fight back. Here, battle-hardened Ukrainian veterans drill them relentlessly. The instructors yell, push them to their physical and mental limits, preparing them for the reality of war. These women are trained to use Maxim M1910 machine guns, early 20th century weapons, now repurposed to take down drones. They face some of Russia's most dangerous aerial threats, including Iranian-made Shahed drones and Russian Gerin drones, which travel up to 150 kilometers per hour and carry deadly explosives. Ukraine's armed forces have seen a significant rise in female enlistment since the war began. Over 65,000 women now serve, with 4,000 in combat roles. The Bucha witches are part of this growing movement. Women who once lived ordinary lives are now standing on the front lines, ready to defend their country. For these women, the war is personal. They are not just defending their country, they are avenging their families, their neighbors, and their way of life. They call themselves witches, perhaps because of the fear they instill in the enemy. But for the people of Ukraine, they are warriors, defenders, and symbols of resilience. Their battlefield is the sky. Their weapons are repurposed relics, and their spirit is unbreakable. The Bucha witches are rewriting history, one downed drone at a time. With Rudrashish Kanjilal, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
Egypt has put forward a new proposal aimed at restoring the Gaza ceasefire deal. Following the escalation in violence after Israel resumed air and ground operations against Hamas last Tuesday, Egypt made the proposal according to reports. After the Israeli strike on Nasser hospital, killing 5, including a Hamas political member, Hamas released a video of the Israeli hostages with the message, "Time is running out." Gaza health officials said Israel has killed nearly 700 Palestinians since it resumed its attacks, including at least 400 women and children. Palestinian health authorities have claimed that Israeli strikes have killed at least 65 people in the enclave in the past 24 hours alone.
Black smoke tinges on the exterior walls of Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis of Gaza stand witness to Sunday's Israel airstrike that killed 5 people, including a Hamas political leader. Relatives mourn the dead.
If one person was killed in the US or in London or in France, if one innocent person was killed, the world would rise. Meanwhile, daily we mourn thousands, hundreds of our people across the Gaza Strip, and no one takes any action, as if this is ongoing bloodshed day and night is not part of humanity, as if they were not humans.
Smoke rose from Nasser Hospital on Sunday as people inside the complex attempted to clear rubble. Israel claimed it has targeted a key figure of Hamas. The Gaza Health Ministry said the strike hit the surgery department at the hospital.
A missile directly hit the second floor of all Yassin buildings, the emergency building. The missile directly hit the male surgery unit, and you can see the unit was totally destroyed, and 90% of patients have been moved safely, and there are martyrs and injured in this place.
The Israeli military said its attack followed extensive intelligence and used precise munitions to minimize harm at the site. Hamas confirmed that Ismail Barhom, a member of its political office, had been killed in the attack. Israel's defense minister confirmed that Barhom, recuperating from an earlier injury in the hospital, was the reason. Israel also released video of northern-based division tanks unloaded in a field and a caption that read, "Preparations of the 36th Division for operations in the Gaza Strip." After 2 months of relative calm in the war, many Gazans have again been displaced. After Israel effectively abandoned a ceasefire and launched a new all-out air and ground campaign against Hamas from 18th March. Bureau Report, India Today.
Turkey is boiling with massive protests. More than 1,100 have been detained in Turkish protests so far. Turkey's interior minister said 1,133 people had been detained since protests began on the 19th of March. Those detained include 9 journalists who covered overnight protests across various cities. There have been large-scale demonstrations in cities across Turkey since last Wednesday over the arrest of Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, the main political rival of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. On Sunday, a court jailed him pending trial on corruption charges that he denies. İmamoğlu's main opposition, Republican People's Party, has been calling for protests against the court decision to arrest the mayor, which they label as politicized and undemocratic. And this is America going all out. Usha Vance, the wife of Vice President J.D. Vance and the Second Lady, will be traveling to Greenland this week with one of her children. The U.S. Second Lady will watch the island's national dog sled race and celebrate Greenlandic culture and unity, but this visit isn't entirely innocent. U.S. National Security Advisor Michael Waltz and Energy Secretary Chris Wright are also visiting Greenland. They're checking out a U.S. military base and exploring Greenland's valuable natural resources. Greenland Prime Minister called the U.S. delegation's trip to the island highly aggressive and raised particular objection to Waltz's visit. Other Greenlandic officials are also frustrated. The country just had elections and a new government isn't even formed yet. They see the timing of these visits as disrespectful and suspicious. U.S. President Donald Trump has been talking about acquiring Greenland for years. In his first term, he openly floated the idea of buying it from Denmark. When Danish leaders dismissed the idea, he doubled down. Now, in his second term, he's still pushing. Privately, Trump has told advisors to find a way to make Greenland an American territory. Now, in other news coming in again from the United States of America, but related to India, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has spoken on reciprocal tax. He's been talking about how April 2nd is just around the corner and that it is American Liberation Day. This is what Howard Lutnick has said just ahead of the talks where we'll see Brendan Lynch in India talking to Indian officials. India will be seeking a carve-out, which means relief on the reciprocal tariff that could be leveled against India or levied against India on the 2nd of April as well. Listen in to Howard.
What is so exciting is April 2nd is just around the corner, and that's American Liberation Day. That's the day when the rest of the world starts to treat America with respect. And your leadership, understanding how the rest of the world treats us and what balance and what fair trade finally is going to be, is going to take care of America. It's going to launch the External Revenue Service to start to build the power and prestige of America back. And I'm honored to be helping you on that course.
And that brings us to the close of this edition of World Today. But before I go, we leave you with these viral visuals of a video of Tesla CEO Elon Musk. He is seen attempting to balance a fork and 2 spoons on the tip of his finger. The video of Musk's balancing act is reportedly from US President Donald Trump's exclusive Mar-a-Lago candlelight dinner, where guests paid $1 million a seat. In one of the videos, Trump sits a little further away while Musk concentrates on balancing the cutlery. With that, goodbye and take care.
Timmy, let's take a picture.